Good morning. It's Saturday, October 1st. On Thursday, the Biden administration was forced to scale back eligibility for its student loan forgiveness plan. And this is because 6 Republican-led states sued President Joe Biden in an effort to block his forgiveness plan from taking effect. Those states are Missouri, Arkansas, Kansas, Nebraska, and South Carolina, and Iowa is in there somehow. And Arizona is planning its own suit, as are several other states. So this is just the beginning of a major attack on this plan. But what bothers me is that there's nothing in the works to scale back what the universities are allowed to do with their tuition fees. Nobody has asked the universities to lower their fees or to take some action that would make those fees more reasonable for most people. Now, as I've said before, there are many colleges that give grants to low-income families, especially the Ivy Leagues. So maybe that's what has to be done. Maybe they don't have to do some general overhaul of tuition fees, although those are outrageous. Maybe we need more schools looking to give grants for many different causes. And maybe we must encourage more people to provide government services after they graduate. Go into the Peace Corps. Go into some government organization that will enable you to gain some kind of tuition assistance, right? There was a plan years ago where if you went into the military, you could get some relief. And don't forget that those who served in the military also are entitled to a GI Bill. So this forgiveness plan is under attack because it affects the lending services. And those suits in those particular states are trying to protect those businesses that are lending money. Now, I think that a lot of the businesses that lend money in this form are not what I would call socially responsible or really need protection. So I'm mixed. I have a mixed bag of feelings about protecting the loaners. Anyhow, there are 43 million people who have student debt, and this stoppage will affect about 770,000 of them in those 6 states. So it's not a catastrophic event, but it is something that is bad because it's leaning toward other challenges. And the total amount of the forgivenesses is something like $389 billion will be forgiven. That's a huge chunk of money. Now, the basis for the lawsuit claims that the president can't unilaterally relieve millions of individuals from their obligations to pay loans that they voluntarily assumed. So the whole forgiveness plan is under attack based upon that the president doesn't have the power to do what he did. Of course, the White House believes that it has the power to forgive student loans, that it's perfectly legal for the president to do that. And they also said that the Republicans in those 6 states are just standing with people who have special interests and fighting against the relief of the borrowers. And maybe that's true, because maybe those large lending firms are big political contributors. Who knows? You know the way this country works. Campaign dollars govern much of what goes on in this country. In any event, this student forgiveness plan ends on December 31st this year. And on January 1st, the people who haven't taken advantage of this plan will now start to repay their money again. But we have to think of different ways to finance colleges if we can't get relief from the university. Maybe there should be a cap on the interest rate that is being applied to any student loan. And maybe we should have a plan, as I mentioned before, for people who take out student loans to have their loans paid for or forgiven if they go into some form of public service or something. Why don't we look to the future and figure out a different way to pay and relieve the stress of going to college for 4 years? And let's not forget that many people don't go to college because they can't afford it. We don't have such a great college population as many think. Only about 25% of the people in the country are college graduates. And that number's not going up. And what about those who choose to go to some trade school or something? Shouldn't they get some kind of relief? I don't know what a trade school costs if you go to become an electrician or a plumber or a house painter or whatever it is. Or whether they are union jobs and you can get trained through a union to do those jobs or something. And maybe that's what we ought to do. Maybe we ought to have something that requires businesses to pay the tuition fees for their employees. Because there are many people who go to college after they have a job. And wouldn't it be good for college students, perhaps, to start looking for jobs when they're sophomores and get the companies that are willing to hire them to pay for their tuition somehow or other? We should have plans, much better plans than we have. We're not thinking about this. This is another problem that exists in this country, and we take a half-assed solution at the last minute, and then we get sued by states that have to protect the business interests of those businesses in their states. It's time we got together and thought about the future of this country. It's time we came up with some creative plans that help people get along. It's time we looked at the low income levels that we have. A lot of this might be solved if we had higher minimum wages. We have states that are still living in the world of the $7.50 an hour minimum wage. All of these things reflect on this situation. This college tuition situation is one of the things that are brought about by many of the other things that are wrong in this country, by many of the things that are done to people, living wages, etc. I think in many cases we're too generous in some areas. We're willing to give things to people without getting any payback of sorts. I'm not a big proponent of welfare and things like that, because I think it should be something that Clinton started, workfare. You're going to get something, but you have to give something in return. You can't get something for doing nothing. Student loans are a bitch. College tuition is too high, and we really have to do something long-term about that. And the president has the power to get involved. I know it doesn't exactly say that in the Constitution, but the Constitution is an old document, and those guys, as great as they were, they couldn't imagine what's going on in the world today. And I'll see you in the morning. Bye.